This is Meryl Dolling. She is the High Sheriff of Bedfordshire. She is the 9th lady to hold this role in 1,000 years, and the first from Luton. The office of the High Sheriff is over 1,000 years old, and it is by royal appointment, which means the Queen has chosen Meryl to be the representative for all matters of the judiciary and maintaining of law and order in Bedfordshire for the year. This is the badge of the High Sheriff, which displays 2 swords, the first a blunt sword representing mercy, the other representing justice. Above is a royal crown with an ermine border to symbolise the judiciary. Now I know you're all wondering where the word sheriff came from. It originates from Saxon times, where sker meant shire, which was the county in which you were in, and gurifer meant guardian. So sheriff stands for the Shire's guardian. They would be responsible for arrests, raising armies, collecting taxes, presiding over courts, and supervised everything that went on in the county on behalf of the monarchy. The sheriff's activities are recorded in the Domesday Books. The sheriff was the main administrator within the Shire, and was accountable to the Court of the Exchequer for taxes payable to the Crown. The annual tax revenue of the country were recorded on great pipe rolls of the Exchequer. This money was collected by the sheriff. The sheriff was very important in governing medieval England. Of the 63 clauses in the Magna Carta, 27 are directly concerning the sheriff and their office. One of the main responsibilities of the High Sheriff was to bring criminals to justice. They did this by raising a hue and cry. In a medieval court, the sheriff would sit on the right of the bar. They would be accompanied by their under-sheriff and bailiff. To the left of the sheriff is the controller, who will have announced the amount of money due from the particular bailiwick and have placed the appropriate number of counters on the checkered cloth. In the middle of the table was the Domesday Book, in which they recorded the fees due from the Shire. At the top there are clerks preparing the great roll, which is where the accounts were recorded. One of the main financial burdens of the sheriff was the duty to provide food for royal feast. At one banquet, 30,000 dishes of meat were served. On the 12th of November each year, 3 people are nominated. Their names are read out by the Queen's Remembrancer of the Office of the High Sheriff. They are read out in the Royal Court of Justice before the Lord Chief Justice and a member of the Privy Council and 2 judges of the High Court. It shows 3 names for Bedfordshire under the Queen's signature. This is done for every county in the country. This photo shows the clerk to the Privy Council holding the roll in which the Queen pricks. In March of each year, the roll of the High Sheriff in nomination is submitted to the Queen. She pricks it with her bobbin and appoints the High Sheriff for the next year. The romantic tradition is that Queen Elizabeth I was doing her needlework in the garden when the list was brought to her, and as there was no quill available, she used the needle to prick the list in front of her. Those appointed receive their warrant of appointment by the Privy Council through the post. Throughout history, the sheriff has retained their interests, if not their responsibility for crime prevention. In 1829, their responsibilities were handed over to Sir Robert Peel's new constabulary. For centuries, the taxes that the sheriff collected were recorded by notches on a hazelwood stick called tallies. They were stored in the basement of the Houses of Parliament. By 1834 there were so many that the MPs ordered that they should be burned in the stove used for heating the Houses of Lords. The stove could not cope with the number of sticks and consequently set fire to the Houses of Lords. The fire then spread to the House of Commons. The roles of sheriffs continued in other countries that the British Empire expanded to. Sheriffs are responsible for upholding the law in countries such as USA, Canada, Australia, New Zealand and India.
Under the 1869 guidelines issued by the Lord Chamberlain's office, A sheriff is required to wear a black and blue velvet coat with gauntlet cuffs and cut steel buttons, a waistcoat with breeches, hose and gloves, carry a sword, wear patterned shoes with cut steel buttons. The look was completed by a hat. A sheriff never leaves their house without their sword. A male sheriff carries their sword by themselves, but it is customary for a lady sheriff to have a fire or police cadet who carries their sword on a cushion in front of them. Although today's sheriffs aren't busting down doors collecting taxes, they are still very busy, doing their civic duties, going to fundraising activities, as well as holding their own events across the year. So now you know that Meryl will have an exciting and busy year ahead of her being High Sheriff of Bedfordshire.